Paul Ryan, Republican from Wisconsin, wanted to know why Obama didn't freeze spending immediately. He says, Ryan says, the spending bills that you have signed into law, the domestic and discretionary spending has been increased by 84%. I would simply submit that we could do more and start now. You've also said that you want to take a scalpel to the budget and go through it line by line. We want to give you that scalpel. So my question is, why not start freezing spending now? And Obama goes on to explain that he didn't increase spending. Those were automatic measures that kicked in when the recession he inherited from George W. Bush reached a certain level. Why do these jerks not understand that?
I want to just push back a little bit on the underlying premise about us increasing spending by 84%. Now, look, the fact of the matter is that most of the increases in this year's budget, this past year's budget, were not as a consequence of policies that we initiated, but instead were built in as a consequence of the automatic stabilizers that kick in because of this enormous recession. So the increase in the budget for this past year was actually predicted before I was even sworn into office and had initiated any policies. Whoever was in there, Paul, and I don't think you'll dispute that, whoever was in there would have seen those same increases because of, on the one hand, huge drops in revenue, but at the same time, people were hurting and needed help. And a lot of these things happen automatically. Now, the reason that I'm not proposing the discretionary freeze take into effect this year, we prepared a budget for 2010, it's now going forward, is again, I am just listening to the consensus among people who know the economy best. And what they will say is that if you either increased taxes or significantly lowered spending when the economy remains somewhat fragile, that would have a destimulative effect, and potentially you'd see a lot of folks losing business, more folks potentially losing jobs. That would be a mistake when the economy has not fully taken off. That's why I propose to do it for the next fiscal year.
Now, how much of that do you suppose registered in the reptilian brains that dominate these Republican office holders? How much of that do you think resonated with the truth, if that's the right word? The increase in the budget for this year was actually predicted before I was even sworn into office. And whoever would have been in there, whoever would have been the president, would have seen those same increases. Because of, on the one hand, huge drops in revenue, but at the same time, people were hurting and needed help. Now, that last line, people were hurting and needed help, that doesn't register with Republicans. They don't know what that means. People were hurting. Well, why don't they pull themselves up by their own damn bootstraps? You know, that sort of thing. And he has to add, for a third time, a lot of these things happen automatically. Don't forget, those massive tax cuts that the Bush crime family initiated when they first came into office had a sunset date of 2010. That's this year. Deliberately setting it for 2010 so that the next president, had he or she been a Republican, could have said, okay, well, we're going to advocate that those tax cuts continue. But knowing, as they knew, the Bush crime family, that those tax cuts initiated when Bush took office, that they were going to cause one hellacious, a horrible recession. Then it would fall, if it were a Democratic president, as Barack Obama claims to be, it would fall on his shoulders to say, okay, we're going to let those tax cuts expire so that the Republicans in Congress could then say, tax increase. You see how this works?